Hello, everyone. Good evening. Hi, everyone. This is Ifeoma Odunlami, immigration attorney from the Odunlami Law Firm in New Jersey. We serve clients all over the states, 50 states of the United States. And we're located in New Jersey, but immigration is federal law, so we can help you regardless of where you are. So I don't know why Instagram is a little dark today, but I apologize for that. And hopefully that won't stop us from discussing this topic, which I'm really eager to talk to you guys about. Good evening, Josie. Thank you for joining. Thank you guys for joining. Please let me know that you're here. Tell me where you're joining from. This is going to be a really quick one, but I've been thinking about this topic for a while, and I thought, this is a good time to discuss it um, because we had a bunch of cases, a lot of wins with some of our clients, a lot of our VAWA clients. Um, and I just thought maybe this is a good time to talk about this. Hi, Stainless. Thank you for joining in. So I'm going to just do a quick overview of what I want to talk about. And if we have some time, I will take questions. I'm always happy to take questions. Hi. This is going really fast. So, hi, everyone. Hey, thank you, Instagram. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Facebook. So, I want to talk about VAWA for men. Yes, men get abused. So, even the name Violence Against Women's Act has led people to think that VAWA only applies to men. But I know you, my audience, you know better because I talk about how VAWA applies to men, it applies to women, it applies to children. So in 1994, VAWA was created to protect uh, people who are being abused by their immediate relatives, green card or US citizens, regardless of gender. And the VAWA protections goes to people in same-sex marriages, traditional marriages. VAWA protects women and men, and this is really important. But I want to talk about the fact that for a lot of men, right, it's difficult for them to come out and talk about the fact that they've been abused. And a lot of it is a cultural thing. A lot of immigrants come from machismo cultures where a man is seen as, strong, the head of the house, invincible. And so a lot of them feel ashamed to admit, a lot of men feel ashamed to admit that they've been abused in their relationships with their wives, right? And to be quite honest with you, a lot of women take advantage of some of the protections or some of the stereotypes, and they work it to their favor. So, for instance, you have women who are the aggressors, but they're calling the police. And when the police come in, the first thing they assume when there's a domestic violence call is that the man is the aggressor. I've had clients who, are so afraid of their spouses calling the police on them that they pretty much just do anything to keep the peace, right? So let's talk about what an abused man has to prove, what the different types of abuses that men face, and what you men really need to be doing if you're in an abusive relationship. So, VAWA requires anybody who's been abused, but in this context, I'm just talking about men. We all know women get abused. We know children get abused. We know parents get abused. But I just want to talk today about men in abusive relationships and how it plays out. So, a man in an abusive relationship with his U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse needs to show that number one, it is a bona fide relationship, which is that the relationship was entered into because he wants to live with the spouse. It's a real relationship. It's not a relationship just to get immigration benefits. That's number one. Number two, the abused man has to show that he's been subjected to abusive behavior, extreme cruelty, or physical abuse. Number three, he has to show that him and his spouse have lived together at some point. There's a residency requirement. It could be before the marriage or during the marriage. It doesn't say how long you have to be together. And number four, you have to show that you are a person of good moral character. So those are the things that a person who's been abused needs to show to be able to file for VAWA. So let's talk about the type of abuse that men suffer. A lot of times it's financial abuse. And this a lot of times is very cultural. In most cultures, the man is the provider. So think about it. When you hear a woman is a stay-at-home mom, oh wow, of course we accept it. But you hear a man is a house husband, is a stay-at-home husband, and everybody thinks he's just lazy. Those are the stereotypes, right? Everyone expects men to be out there working, providing the house, the head of the household, paying the bills. And a lot of immigrants, a lot of women who are married to this man take advantage of that. They force them to go out and work. They make demands upon them, asking for things that they know that they cannot afford. And funny enough, a lot of men, their love language is showing, buying things. Think about it. Valentine's Day, men are buying roses, they're buying flowers, they're buying chocolate. It's buy, buy, buy. So some women take advantage of it. They are forcing this man to purchase things that the man clearly cannot afford. And for lots of immigrant men, they probably have no work papers, or they have work papers. They're not working jobs that allow them to live a lavish lifestyle. So financial abuse is a big form of abuse that immigrant men suffer. Sometimes the women force them to go to work. Sometimes force them to have more than one jobs. And sometimes the women refuse to work. Just refuse to work. They stay home and they feel that they're entitled to stay home because it's the man's job to provide. And this can be abusive, right? I mean, if it's an agreement between the couple that the man goes to work and the woman stays home, that's fine. But where you're forcing this person to work, right, and you're not contributing, knowing fully well that he on his own he can't afford the lifestyle that you wish, that's abusive. Now, another form of abuse that a lot of immigrant men suffer is it has to do with children. If the couple have children, a lot of abusers will use their children as a way of gaining leverage in the relationship, right? Because we all know that if you go to family court, especially if the kids are young, there's women get the benefit of custody. If you have a young child, there's a presumption that the child is better off with the mother if there's no issue of an unfit, if there's no claims of being an unfit parent. And so a lot of women will say to their spouses, if we go to court, I'm going to get the children and I'm going to hang you up for child support. And you're going to be working for child support and you're not going to get to see the kids. And so a lot of men are afraid of being put in this position. So they'll pretty much just toe the line because they want to be able to have access to their children, because they're afraid of going to family court where they feel that they will not be treated fairly. So now there are a lot of family lawyers who are advertising that they're working, helping men, basically advocating men's rights in divorce proceedings, because there's this understanding that men get a really rough deal when it comes to family court. So when you have a spouse who's a U.S. citizen or green card holder who's using the children to basically control you, right? Making you do things they want you to do because you're afraid that if you get deported, you won't be able to see your children anymore. That's another threat. You're going to get deported and, you're never going to see the kids again. Or we're going to go to family court and you're going to be paying child support and you're never going to have time. You're not going to spend time with your children except the spouse wants that. So that's a form of abuse, where you're controlling. Abuse is always about control, And then there is the abuse of when a woman has a child that she knows very well does not belong to her husband. She has a child in an extramarital relationship, and the man doesn't know about it until maybe there's been a DNA taken or something happens, And, a lot of times these men are so devastated And a lot of times they're afraid to leave the relationship because they don't really have a way out, you know. Or, another one that's really common is constantly accusing the man of cheating, wanting to see his phone. And I'm talking about unjustified cheating. I'm not talking of a man who's, out there cheating with everything and then, trying to gaslight the woman into thinking, why do you need to see my phone? I'm talking of a lot of women who, as a way of controlling the man, they want to see his phone. They question every woman he talks to, everyone that likes his comment. If a woman likes his comment, there's trouble. If he's talking to his female cousins, there's trouble. So they're controlling this man. They don't want him to talk to anybody, his family, send money to his mother, because they feel that the priority is them. So there are men who have another family. Maybe they were married before, now divorced, they have children, and their spouses will refuse to let them spend money on their other kids because the spouse will say, oh, it's he's sending money to his ex, And of course, for a lot of men, it's hard for them to, to explain that this, yes, that's my ex, but my ex has my children. I still have to take care of my children. And so you see this men in abusive relationships where they cannot even take care of their children from previous relationships because of the control their U.S. citizen or green card holder wife is holding against them. Now, there's also physical abuse. When men are physically abused, either it's hitting them or shoving them, or there's this assumption by women that they can do it, but it can't be done back to them. So you see a woman who's being physically abusive, but if that man shoves her back, she calls the police. And when the police come, guess what? If that man actually did anything towards her, it doesn't really matter who the original aggressor is in most cases, because a lot of times the men are bigger, they're bulkier, they're more intimidating. And so a lot of women take advantage of that. They are the aggressors, but they're the ones that call the police. And then, they get the benefit of the doubt. So, so if you guys have any questions, let's, talk about it. So another way that men are being abused in their relationships with their U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse is when they're compared to other men. Either they compare them in terms of the way they look or in terms of their sexual prowess. They humiliate them. Sometimes they actually humiliate them in front of their friends. He's no good. He's this. And for men especially, being embarrassed in front of other people or being, talked down to it's really embarrassing. I mean, it's embarrassing for anybody, but a lot of men, especially immigrant men who come from cultures where they're so-called, dominant men, it's hard for them to, handle, being embarrassed in front of other people, being talked down, being compared to other men. And a lot of things that some women will do will be to make the man feel so guilty about the lifestyle that he has forced upon her, which is if she was with another man, she would live a better life. Maybe she would travel. Now they can't travel because you don't have your papers. You can't go anywhere. I could be doing this. Look at my friend. Her husband and her went to Italy and they're doing fun. I can't do anything because you don't have papers. I can't, we can't buy a house because you don't have papers. We can't do all the things we have to do because you don't have papers. And at the same time, they won't file for the papers because they're using the ability to get them their work permit as a leverage to controlling them. So if you're a man who's been going through this, right, it's abuse, and you should recognize it as abuse. Because I remember when I think it was a year or two ago when we were all watching the Johnny Depp trial with Amber Heard. Initially, a lot of people thought it was amusing, but that man was being abused, She abused him. She was the one that put out the word that he was an abuser. He lost his contract with some Hollywood production company because She said something. And then finally he fought back. He decided to sue her. And he won. Because as the story came out, as the tale came out, we realized that this man was being abused. And this is Johnny Depp. This is a man who is, who is powerful in Hollywood. So what do you think an immigrant man, how powerless do you think an immigrant man would feel? So if you are an immigrant and you're male and you're in an abusive relationship, you don't have to stay. And another thing about men is they don't like to share their stories. Women are more emotionally connected. If they're going through, stuff, they'll talk to their friends. They'll share with their family. But men tend to just hold it all in. They don't. They don't go to a therapist because they think it's not manly. And they suffer. So when it's time to file the petition, a lot of times it's hard to get evidence because they haven't shared with anybody. They didn't take pictures of the abuse. They didn't take pictures of the injuries that they suffered, right? They didn't save documents because they were ashamed of the fact that they were being abused. So what I'm saying to you today, if you're in an abusive relationship, is there's nothing. The shame is not yours. The shame is your abuser's. And the good thing about VAWA is that you do not have to stay with the abuser if you don't want to. If you decide to stay, it's up to you, but they don't have to know because VAWA is confidential. You can file your VAWA petition and they will not know about it. And you'll get your work permit, you'll get your travel permit, and ultimately you will get your green card without the assistance of somebody who has been abusing you. All right, so let's see if we have any questions. Hello, Mr. Tusk. Good day to you as well. So let's see. I have some questions on Instagram. Let's answer a couple of questions. Hey, Bold Kunle, you're in New Jersey. Yay. Hi, Trina Deb. How are you? And Gerald Oshoke says he's from Indiana. Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining. And D Cross Fitness is from Houston, Texas. And Efosa says, you look beautiful, not dark. Oh, thank you. And Ayodeji, thank you guys for joining. So let's see if we have any questions. Myra says, does the immigration lawyer have the right to call the USCIS for a delay process? Myra, there's no right if your case is being delayed. There's no right to call. Lawyers don't have any right to call. What we can do is we can file a lawsuit for you if your case is past normal processing times. You can file a lawsuit. It's called a writ of mandamus, and that's the best way to get your case moving forward. Okay, your lawyer can do that. A phone call really doesn't do much, I can tell you that. And so going on, let's see the next question. Mommy C777 says the filing of our document has been delayed for 10 years. How do I hasten the process? Mommy C77, that's just what I just talked about. I don't know what kind of document you're talking about, because even though 10 years is a long time, there's some filings that the regular processing time is 10 years. For instance, if you're filing for your sibling, that takes a long time. So if that's the case, there's nothing to hasten. That's just the process. But if you're filing you should talk to a lawyer and see if it's the normal processing times, or you can go to your USCIS website and figure out what the normal processing time is. If it's way past then file a writ of mandamus. Or if you want to do something less, I guess, effective, you can keep calling USCIS, do an e-inquiry. You can call your congressman, see if they can help. But really the best way to get USCIS to make a decision on your case is to sue them. We've been very successful with the ones we've done. And then I have retired. Ms. Sherman says, hello, does USCIS send green card along with the letter of approval, or it's sent separately? If sent separately, how long after approval does it typically take? So retired, usually USCIS will send an approval, right? And then the green card comes later. They typically don't come together in the same envelope, but it's a really short period of time. All right, let's see. So let me go to Facebook. Stainless says, is VAWA possible if spouse threatens to annul? Yes, VAWA is possible because your spouse will threaten to do whatever it takes to get you under control. An annulment is a very frequent threat, is a very common threat, because they know that an annulment says the marriage never existed, right? And so by threatening to annul the marriage, they're trying to take away your right to file VAWA based on a bona fide marriage. But that itself is part of the abuse. We had a client who actually was in court fighting to get a divorce, and his spouse was fighting to get it annulled. And we were able to show that that's part of the abuse. So I wouldn't worry about it, but you should talk to a lawyer so that the lawyer can get the details of the case and be able to advise you properly, because what I'm doing right now is not legal advice. I'm just giving information. I don't know your situation, so I cannot give you legal advice. So Wes Charles says, good evening. I have a dismissed domestic violence past 10 years. Can I adjust my status? So Wes, it depends. It depends on what the domestic violence was. If you were my client, I would get I would ask you to get the charges and get the disposition. We've had clients who were charged with domestic violence, and but if sometimes it's not there's more to it, and it wouldn't be a problem. But if it was dismissed, then it shouldn't be a problem if it was dismissed. But I really don't know enough about your situation, so I don't want to give you advice on something that I don't know enough. I don't have enough information about. Okay. Then Natalia Calderon says, I have a VAWA case since a year ago. I'm still waiting for an answer. Also, my kids are on this process. My question is if it's better to apply for a juvenile visa for my son who was neglected by his father, or is it better to wait for the VAWA answer? Natalia, that's a really, really, really great question. I'm going to talk about it a little. See, if you'd asked this question a year and a half ago, I would have told you to go ahead and file the SJIS. I mean, I'm assuming that you're not from certain countries where, that's really backlogged, right? Because there's some countries, Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, those countries, their priority dates were really, really backlogged. But other countries where we were able to file an SJIS case and file an adjustment of status at the same time. So our clients were able to get their SIJ approval and a green card within a year. Now, since March, there's been retrogression. So the priority date for SIJS cases is now 2018. So now we can really just file the I-360, get it approved, and the child can file for a work permit, but the green card will come in 3 or 4 years, depending on when the priority date is. But this is what I have to say to you, Natalia. There's nothing wrong with having more than one pathways to a green card, because if your VAWA case is not successful, then what it means is that your son would not have access, would not be able to get a green card. So why not have him file his SIJS case as well, so that at least he has another pathway to a green card if the VAWA is not successful. Hopefully your VAWA case will be successful, but it's really a decision that you can make. You alone can make, okay? Now, if I was your attorney and I saw the type of VAWA case it is, maybe I might be able to tell you what I think, And it also depends on how old your son is. If your son is really young, then he would have until he would have until 18 or 21, depending on what state you live in, to be able to file in case the VAWA doesn't work out. But really, it's a decision you have to make. So Uma Brasilera says, hello, how are you? And Stainless says, exactly, Natalia, you're welcome. Your son is 21. Where do you live, Natalia? Tell me real quick. Let me think. Is it a state where you have to be 21 to be able to file SIJS? He's 19. All right. Let me look for other questions while she's getting back to me. You're in Connecticut. I think Connecticut is 21, I think. Like I said, it's up to you. If it was me, I'd do it. Because don't put all your eggs in one basket. So Mr. Daniel says, good afternoon, counselor. How long does it take for immigration to send you a green card after arriving in the U.S. as a DV winner immigrant? I'm not really sure about this answer, Mr. Daniel, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how long it takes. The processing times, you can look at the USCIS processing, the website, and see how long it takes, but I do not know the answer to that. So let's see. So Tame Sharon says, what if you don't have the proof of abuse? Well, Tame Sharon, if you don't have the proof of abuse, talk to an attorney, because sometimes you have more proof than you think you do. And I can tell you this, your declaration statement is powerful proof if you're able to write it so your voice can be heard. We've had clients that didn't have a lot of proof, but I tell you, the declaration statement won the case. All right. And like I said, sometimes there's proof out there, but you just have to think outside the box. And that's something an attorney can assist you with. An attorney that does a lot of VAWA cases. Anyway, hi, Portia. Nice to see you. Let's go. Moving on. Let's see. All right. Don Lifestyle says, hey, do you do asylum seekers? In my office, we do asylum, but we really are very, very picky about the asylum cases we take, because asylum is really, 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 really tough. The law is really, 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 really tough on those. So we do not take frivolous asylum cases. Not that we take any frivolous cases, but we really want to make sure that it's a case that is winnable in the jurisdiction that the person is in. All right. All right. Retired says, I think I've answered this question before. Let's keep going. For VAWA, Deji Olotu 91 says, for VAWA, can one send more evidence after the initial submission? Deji, that's a really great question. We actually typically do send more evidence, because sometimes we have to file a really quick VAWA application if we're doing an abeyance request, and then we supplement it as we get more information. Or sometimes we have our clients who are in abusive relationships and worse things happen. Like I had a client who, after we filed the petition, her spouse broke into where she was living and basically beat the crap out of her. And there was a police report, there was restraining orders and all that. And we packed it all up and submitted it. And another thing, that client was in deportation proceedings as well. And we're able to get the deportation proceedings terminated by doing a prosecutorial discretion request with the ICE attorney. So yes, more evidence can be sent. Just make sure that when you send the evidence, you put a copy of the I-360 receipt so that they can, they don't lose the document. Okay. All right. So Anike Fulani says, my brother married for the past eight months, and he was advised to wait for 1 year before putting in for his SSS and work permit. Is that true? I don't know why he would do that. If your brother is here and married to a US citizen, he should be able to do it in one step. Okay. All right. So Flawsome Fairy says, hello, can a green card holder sponsor a spouse, or do they have to wait until they are a citizen? Now, this is a really great question, Flawsome. A green card holder can sponsor a spouse if that spouse is in the United States and is in legal status. They can also sponsor a spouse if that spouse is abroad. So if your spouse is in the United States and your spouse is no longer in status, maybe they came in with a visa, the visa expired, and the green card holder, is a green card holder, your spouse cannot adjust their status because they are on what we call a preference, right? And when you're in a preference, you have to be in legal status if you're married to a green card holder. So what we typically advise in this kind of case is for the green card holder to naturalize, and we can bump up the case and they can adjust their status. Or they can file a waiver if they've been here, for unlawful presence. A waiver is a forgiveness. They can do that too. But if they can wait for their green card holder to become a U.S. citizen. Then they don't have to leave the country. All right. Okay. So Apple of God's Eye says, hello, my barrister Odunlami. Hi, how are you? All right. So Bold Kunle 20 says, what does it mean for one case to be under the jurisdiction of the National Benefit Center, which has taken a long time? I don't really understand what this question means. Cases are under different jurisdiction depending on where USCIS decides that it's the fastest for that case to be adjudicated. Okay. Tony says, hi, ma'am. I just got my green card last year. Is it okay for me to start filing for my fiance this year? Congratulations, Tony. So now, Tony, that's a really good question. So my question to you would be, how did you get your green card? Because if you got your green card through another person filing for you, you have to wait 5 years before you can file for somebody else, right? So at least 5 years from when you got your green card. If you got your green card through a spouse filing for you, you have to wait. If you got your green card through a parent or through your employer, there's no reason for you to wait, okay? It only applies to when you get your green card through marriage. You can't turn around, get your green card through marriage, turn around and file for somebody else. They look at that very, they scrutinize that. All right. So Anthony Sennett says, good evening. Please, how long does it take to approve an I-360? Well, the case processing website says it's taking about 2.5 to 3 years. However, it really depends. We've been able to get I-360 approved in as little as 7 months, 8 months. We still have some pending, 3 years, 2 years, 2.5, it depends. All right, guys, I'm going to answer a couple more questions and then I got to go because it's 6:37. So Forever Howie says, hello, I have an EAD based on a pending asylum, but I'm now married to a U.S. citizen and will be filing an I-130 and I-485. Should I still file another I-765 in order to change my EAD category? You can. There's no rule against it. You can, and you can have 2 work permits. But if your asylum is pending and it's denied, and you don't have another EAD category, you may not be able to work. So you decide. You know your case. You know the strength of your case better. But there's no rule against it. Basically, is what I'm saying. So Lemonade says, hello, if a person got arrested and we have all the proper documents about the arrest, will we be waived from an interview? That's a really vague question. I don't know what the person was arrested for. I don't know what the interview is for. So I cannot answer that question. It's too vague. All right. Mighty Wifey says, do you work on reverse deportation cases? We do. Deportation cases. And okay, Tony says you got it through work. Yeah, you can file for your spouse. As long as your spouse is in legal status, right? Or your fiance. They have to be in legal status for them to be able to adjust their status with a green card holder. I think I answered that question before, okay? All right. Sasha Sasha Perry says, I recommend someone to you. I talked to the person today. Thank you, Sasha. I was going to send you a note. Thank you so much. And then I think that's it, guys. I think I'm all done with all the questions for today. It was a pleasure talking to you. So if you know anybody who is in an abusive relationship, tell them that there is freedom. They do not have to be in an abusive relationship to get their green card. They can get their green card by self-petitioning through VAWA, or they might even have another pathway to getting their green card. But they need to take the first step and talk to an attorney. All right, guys, talk to you later. If you need to call my office, if you have any immigration issues, feel free to call us at 973-993-1900. Have a good evening.